All right. Greetings, everyone. My name is Marcus Smith, and I'm the Diversity and Inclusion Officer for the Aerospace Systems Directorate. I would like to be the first to welcome you to the AFRL and AFIT speaker series this month featuring Mr. DJ Vanas. The speaker series has been a great initiative that we've been able to host for quite some time now, and it has been very fruitful. We've been able to bring in a diverse array of people to engage with our workforce, from professors, practitioners, professionals. So we are really looking forward to today's engagement. Before we get started, I did want to go over a couple of housekeeping items. First, this session is set up as a webinar. So everyone who is joining the meeting that is not a panel member will be muted with no camera access. Second, there will be an opportunity for question and answer at the end of the session. This will be moderated by myself and Lieutenant Macias. And third, please just sit back and enjoy. We were able to host Mr. DJ Vanas at our awards gala back in January for the Aerospace Systems Directorate, and we've kind of been keeping him a secret. So this is our moment to unleash him and share him with the rest of our Air Force colleagues and workforce. So please sit back and enjoy and have plenty of questions at the end. With that, I will hand it over to Dr. Rick Fingers, the Associate Director for the Aerospace Systems Directorate. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Can you hear me okay? Thank you, Marcus. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome, as Marcus said, Dr. Smith said, to the AFRL AFIT Diversity and Inclusion Speaker Series. I'm Rick Fingers. I'm the Associate Director of the Aerospace Systems Directorate, and today it is my great honor to be able to introduce today's speaker, Mr. DJ Eaglebear Vanas. Mr. Vanas is a thought leader. He's a celebrated speaker and best-selling author whose expertise is showing people and organizations how to apply the warrior spirit at work. He's the author of a best-selling book called The Tiny Warrior, A Path to Personal Discovery and Achievement. And I have to tell you that I actually bought this book and his other book and thoroughly enjoyed the first one. I haven't finished the second one yet, but I can say that first one, if you are a mentor or a mentee, I highly recommend reading The Tiny Warrior, Path to Personal Discovery and Achievement. I thought it was a great book. His latest book is called Spirit on the Run, and actually I think that may not be his latest book. Mr. Vanas, when you talk, please let us know. I think you said that you had one coming out after Spirit on the Run. So DJ is an enrolled member of the Ottawa Tribe, and he is a former U.S. Air Force officer. He inspires organizations to strengthen their tribe and practically apply the warrior spirit principles to serve at their best, stay resilient, and lead with courage. So for 2 decades, he's delivered this dynamic program in 49 states and overseas to clients such as Walt Disney, NASA, Intel, U.S. Army, many other organizations, to include hundreds of tribal governments and organizations. He's also been invited to speak at the White House twice. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree from the U.S. Air Force Academy and a Master of Science degree from the University of Southern California. He has served on the board of directors at the National Board of Certified Counselors. DJ is the president and owner of Native Discovery, Inc. He is featured on a PBS documentary called The Warrior Tradition, and he is the host of his very own PBS show called Discovering Your Warrior Spirit, which will air nationally in August, so next month, August of 21, so coming up next month. So if okay with you, Mr. Vanas, we'd like to show that 30-second clip of your upcoming show. I think it's probably okay. I don't know if you have a way to say that it's not, so I'm going to run with it. Marcus, are you able to show that 30-second clip for us?
Inside each of us, a warrior waits to be discovered.
DJ Eaglebear Vanas taps into the power of our warrior spirit.
The foundation for the warrior spirit is forged from the enduring attributes of Native American principles. This program will help you find and develop the warrior spirit to face your everyday challenges. I'm confident these ideas will benefit your life in deep, meaningful ways.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Mr. DJ Eaglebear Vanas. Welcome, sir.
All right, thank you, Dr. Fingers, and thank you to all of you who are on the session today. It is an honor to be back. Good seeing it. Well, I know that we're being joined by, it's not just Air Force Research Labs, but also AFIT, and also the directorate, the people who came back and wanted to watch this second round of sessions. And thank you so much for showing that video clip. It's still surreal to know that there's gonna be a national TV program next month, but that's also why we have our family and friends in our life to keep us humble. I told my daughters when this was all happening that I'm gonna be on a TV show. It's gonna be aired nationwide, and my daughters, of course, go, "Well, what channel is it gonna be on?" And I said, "PBS." And they said, "Isn't that the channel Sesame Street's on?" Yes, it is. They got other stuff too, but I'm really proud to be partnered up with them. It was a lot of work, a lot of detail, but it was one of those moments that came from, kind of pivoting during the pandemic of going through transition and change. And I traveled a lot. And once I got, once the pandemic hit and things got pulled away, where I wasn't traveling as much, I pivoted. And I said, well, I've got this time, this energy, I've got goals that I still want to, reach and create. What can I do? I'm not traveling now. What can I do with the time that I have? And so I started putting it into my next book, which I'm under contract now with Penguin Random House for a summer launch of my newest book called The Warrior Within, which will be launched in summer 2022, and then this PBS documentary or show, Discovering Your Warrior Spirit. So if you can't get there one way, you change ways and you keep moving forward. And so that was one of the things I learned going through this past year. I know it's been a rough one for everybody. The title of this program is called Calling All Warriors. And it's for those who are willing to step up and keep moving forward despite the headwind, despite the turbulence. And I know that's all of you who are on this session. And I'm glad that you're here. We're going to unpack some of these ideas and show how these principles land in our life and can benefit us. And nothing that we're going to cover today is rocket science. I don't think anybody, I know you literally work in an area that is high tech, high speed. We're going to come back to some basic principles. The fundamentals are still the fundamental, or are still fundamental, and the basics are still the basics. And I think that's great news in a very fast-paced, highly complex world that we live in. And I say with great confidence what I'm about to say right now, that all the elders I've worked with and all the 500 plus tribal nations I've worked with in 25 years will back me up when I say this. It's when we drift away from the basics as human beings that we really start to struggle. So the good news is if we go back to them, we very quickly get back to a place of clarity, back to a place of strength, and back to a place of confidence. And so we're going to talk about those ideas as we spend the time together today that we have. Calling all warriors. This year has been rough. There's no way around it. Everybody has been tested, everybody has been battered, everybody has been weighed and measured. And we have all found things in ourselves that we didn't know we had. We found that we have strength, reserves that we didn't know we had. And we also found that we had areas that we need to improve that we may not have been aware of until we went through this great change and challenging time. It's kind of like, I think it's akin to being cast in a suspense movie that nobody wanted to be a part of. With all the elements of a suspense movie, right? Worry, anxiety, fear, the occasional aha, got you moment. And it has challenged everybody. And I know that we've all worked hard to maintain, our balance and to keep moving forward and take care of ourselves and our families and do a good job at work and continue to serve. But it's been a challenge. I've been working hard on myself over this last year. I'm proud to say I've got a six-pack, and it's right here. You can count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, all 6 right there. And why? It's from doing this for a year. Oh no. And it all started off with not having enough toilet paper, right? And then who knew all the other stuff would follow after. So it's been a challenging time. But the good news is we keep putting one foot in front of the other. We will get through this. This too shall change. This too shall pass. But the burning question is, how do we stay strong, resilient, and continue to still serve well? That's the burning question. And that's what we're going to talk about during the time that we have during this session. The word warrior, I want to unpack that first, because when I say that word, I know it's loaded. Everybody's got their preconceived notions of what that word actually means. And I want to cover it from a traditional standpoint, a traditional perspective. When I say the word warrior, a lot of times what gets triggered in our minds is that Hollywood version of that sweaty, chiseled character that's walking down the street and shooting bullets and bazookas and knocking down buildings and bad guys and occasional, surly looks at the camera. That's usually what we think of when we hear that word warrior in general society. But in our traditional ways, we look at warriors in through a very different lens. It's also very similar to the way that we look at warriors in our military. It's somebody who has dedicated their lives to service. Somebody who is taking their creator-given talents and abilities, developing that over a lifetime so they could be an asset or a benefit to the tribe they served. And today, whether that tribe is your family, your team, your unit, your lab, your country, you get to define what that tribe is. But we all have one to serve. And I also learned that combat boots and a short haircut are not required to be a warrior. It is somebody who is consciously making a choice to be a contributor in their own lives. And I know that that speaks to all of you who are on this session. This probably sounds familiar because you're on this path right now. Our warriors in our tribe, we call them Ogichi-da. And that term has nothing to do with what we see in TV or in movies. It is somebody who is willing to fight for something bigger than their own personal welfare, somebody who leads by example, somebody who's humble enough to be a lifetime learner and be accountable for all of their actions, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Woo, woo, dum, dum, dum. We're all going to have all three. Warriors are willing to step up to the plate and own that. Warriors are also, the beating heart of that warrior role was service. It wasn't glory. Let's be honest. Most of what you do, you don't get credit for. Am I right? I'm going to go on faith here and think that there's a bunch of heads doing this. But you do it anyway. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. But it's not about the glory that feeds this warrior role. The heartbeat of that warrior role was service. And there's three reasons why that was so critically important in that responsibility and role. Number one, service is our highest calling. It's our highest calling. If we are not put here to serve and contribute, why are we here at all? You ever thought about that? It's an important question. So it's our highest calling. Number two, it's our deepest need. We all have a need. You have it, I have it, my kids have it, your kids have it, your coworkers have it. And it's a need to feel valued at some level, to feel that we matter, to feel that our work matters. And we can get some of that need fulfilled when we serve other people well. How cool is that? That's a great game of connect the dots. So it is our deepest need. And the third reason why service is the heart of that warrior role is because service is the thing that outlives us. It's the legacy we leave behind. Out of all the nations, I've worked with over 500 tribal nations in the last 25 years of my life. And in every one of those communities, when they lose an elder, and that elder walks on and passes away, they have a feast, a ceremony to get together and reflect on that elder's life. And what do you think they talk about during those memorials? Not the elder's nice clothes or the car they drove or where they vacationed. What they talk about is the contribution that elder made to their tribe, who they helped, who they shared stories, the moments that they shared stories or values or virtues or lessons, the times where they were there as a shoulder to cry on or a hand to hold, the people that they gave a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of humor to somebody who needed it the most in that moment. That's what gets remembered. That's the legacy we leave behind. And every day that we get up and we go into work and we go into our lives and we go into our relationships, we are creating that legacy of service in that warrior role that we're all on. And like I said, I know this sounds familiar because you're on this path of contribution and what the traditional warrior role was all about. Now, we get that concept, and I think that's probably something that is, you know, fairly straightforward and easy to understand. But what we don't talk about is the other side of being a warrior. And the other side of being a warrior is this truth. Warriors were not bulletproof. We sometimes over-romanticize the warrior role, where it's somebody who is this bright, shiny person who is impervious to pain, impervious to outside help, impervious to fear. They don't need anything, they don't need anybody, and they never get rattled, they never get scared. They don't need outside resources. Nothing could be further from the truth. Our warriors dealt with fear, they dealt with pain, they made mistakes, they stumbled, they fell down. That's what made them so admirable, is because they went through all this and yet they found a way to keep going forward. What our warriors did not do was quit. But our warriors, just like everybody else, needed outside help, encouragement, support, outside answers. We all do. We're human beings. That's part of the deal. But we need, and the reason why I say that is because we need warriors. We don't need martyrs. Warriors are people who can contribute day after day, stay in the fight, if you will, and continue to do their good works and good service every day, who can sustain that. That's what we need now more than ever. What we don't need is martyrs. Martyrs are people who go until they fall apart. And then they look at the debris field left and they go, my gosh, how did this happen? We don't need that. And we all know what that looks like. That's the people who go until they burn out, who refuse to accept or ask for help, who say, you know, I'll just figure this out on my own. I'm not going to ask any questions. I'm not going to admit I don't know everything that's going on. It's one of the quickest ways to paint ourselves into a corner. And I highly recommend you not do that. We all struggle. We all need help at times. But when we refuse what is offered or available, we paint ourselves into a corner and get into hot water very quickly. When I was 11 years old, I got my appendix removed. And the hospital I had it done at, I'm convinced was learn-as-you-go medicine. My dad's appendectomy scar is about 1.5 inches long. Mine goes from my belly button all the way to the side of my body. They opened me up. And I woke up, I was in the worst pain of my life. I had 12 stainless steel staples keeping my scrawny body together. And I'm laying in bed moaning and crying. And my parents had to help me do everything. They had to help me sit up in bed, had to help me eat, go to the bathroom, which is embarrassing, but at least it's your folks, right? Every once in a while, the door would open up and it was like clouds and cupids would roll in. And I would hear in the background, it was my nurse. And I was head over heels in crush mode towards my nurse. And she would come in, and of course, I pretended as an 11-year-old prideful kid, stubborn kid, that I was not in the worst pain of my life. And I would sit up in bed and hold my stomach. Hi, how are you? Oh, I'm good, I'm good. She'd leave, and I'd go back to crying and moaning again. Well, about 10 till 8, she came in, and she said, visitor hours are over at 8, so your parents are going to have to leave. And I'm on shift tonight, so if you need anything, I'm here to help. I'm willing to help you with whatever you need. If you need something to eat, if you need to go to the restroom. Even when she said that, I still remember my face and neck got hot. I was mortified to even consider that as an option. And so she left, and 8 o'clock rolled around. My parents said goodbye, and I'm laying there in bed. Now, as an 11-year-old kid who was too stubborn to accept the help that was so willingly offered, which we sometimes do, I created a strategy. And my strategy was, tonight, I'm just going to hold it. Yeah, that was it. That was the extent of my strategy. And you know how terrible of a strategy that was, because when you come out of a surgery, what do they connect you to? A big giant bag of saline, right? Because the more hydrated we are, the quicker we heal. It also makes you have to go to the bathroom about every 4 minutes. So my strategy to just hold it worked until about 8:23. And at that point, my foot is shaking in bed. I've got rivulets of sweat coming down the one side of my face, and it's go time. Decisions, decisions. Now, on the right side of my bed was the call button. The left side of my bed was a Tupperware jug that was already a third full. And because I was unwilling to accept the help that was so willingly offered, I said, I got this. I don't need help. I can do it myself. I scooted out to the edge of the bed. I put the Tupperware jug in front of me, and I'm sitting on the edge, and hospital beds are always like 10 feet off the ground. So my legs are dangling. And I started to realize that the reaction of a paper gown on a starched linen is kind of like a plastic toboggan on a snowy hill. And I started to slide. And I sat up, and I ripped a staple. And I screamed out in pain, and I dropped the jug, and went everywhere. The story's bad. It gets worse. Because momentum had been created, and I kept sliding. And I'm desperately clawing for the sheets and the blankets on the bed to stop my fall, and it didn't help. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Poof. Face down in a puddle of my own creation. The story's bad, but it gets worse. Guess what I had to do next? In came the love of my life and saw a terrible scene laid out before her. I am laying face down in a yellow puddle I had created, crying my eyes out with my naked rear end hanging out of the back of my gown. All cool points were lost. All chance of a long-term relationship were over, all because I was too stubborn and prideful to accept help that was offered. And I bring this story up to plead with you not to do that. When we go through change, when we go through challenge, that is the moment that we need people the most. But it's also the moment that we are most likely to pull back because of fear and then all the things that kick in, pride, ego. Here's the thing that I want to share with you is I was taught traditionally by our elders in our native communities, we are a lot more like bees and ants than we are like eagles. We need each other. We're better when we're with each other, with the right people, the right supporting cast, right? We are neurologically hardwired for connection. And especially when we go through times of stress or strain, this is where we really need to connect with our bigger tribe. There is a common heritage. Everybody comes from diverse backgrounds. Race, religion, belief systems, education, life experiences, and comes together to form a team. But you do have a common heritage. Being that you do the work that you do, being part of the Air Force family, whether it's as a contractor or civilian or active duty, it's part of a common heritage that's forged on creativity, innovation, contribution, teamwork. And it's one of those things that we can rely on when we focus on what we have in common and what we're working towards, rather than focusing on what makes us different and why there's stress and strain in the system. We need to be able to go back to a place where we're focusing on those natural principles and realize that we are built for connection. I had an elder years ago tell me, he said, our spirits are like sponges. They soak up whatever they're around. And I love that one too, because that talks directly to the environment we build around ourselves. We can build an environment around us that's supportive, that's encouraging, that's strengthening, or we can allow ourselves to be an environment that's negative, hostile, or focuses on all the things that are going wrong. The choice is up to us. But like I said, we need warriors, not martyrs. Martyrs go till they fall apart. They refuse help. They stop taking breaks. They stop, trying to find different ways to approach their problems. And they start to get more and more entrenched and less flexible. So we don't want to go that route. So let's talk about some of the other principles that we have at work that can serve us well. Warriors are also very good at thinking tribal-centrically. Our warriors were always masters at incorporating whatever they had in their environment to create success. All of our tribes that I've worked with over the past 25 years, I've been amazed at the tribal communities, how innovative and creative they used the resources that were in their own backyard to create success. In New Mexico, the Pueblo people used the local mud in their own backyard to create these beautifully engineered multi-level apartment complexes that stayed cool in the summer, warm in the winter. And were built into the side of a cliff. A lot of them were these cliff dwellings, which are beautiful and still stand today, by the way, very well engineered. Or whether it's the Inuit people in Alaska who used seal skin, which is as warm as cloth, 4 times its thickness. And seal skin is also waterproof like Gore-Tex. What a brilliant use of a resource. My tribe, we use birch bark in our own backyards, from everything from containers to housing to the canoes that made us famous, these birch bark canoes that were light, fast, maneuverable. I mean, they were the pinnacle of Woodland's technology. And the hulls on these canoes were less than 1/4 of an inch thick. And an 18-foot canoe could weigh as little as 35 pounds. So we leveraged that resource to maximum effect. We also tapped the trees, maple trees, that were in our own backyard to create the wonderful concoction known as maple syrup. You're welcome. That was from us. That was on us. But the point I'm trying to make is we need to take advantage of the resources in our own backyard, especially when we go through turbulence. This is a great time to sit down with your teams and assess the resources that you have on a daily basis. And I encourage you to do this individually too. What do I have to work with today? And I don't mean just other people, technology, the systems you have in the office to coordinate and collaborate. What I'm talking about is other basic resources that we sometimes completely take for granted, like our own time, our attention, our energy, our skill sets, our attitude, our work ethic. All these things are priceless resources we have access to on a daily basis. And when we ignore what we have to work with, we don't get to see them have an impact in what we do daily. So be aware of that. Think tribal centrically about what you have to work with on a daily basis. I will tell you from personal experience too, we are never going to have all we want. So we might as well get out of that line of argument. I've seen people waste so much time and energy complaining about the one thing. They have 99 things and one thing's missing. They focus all their time and attention on that. We're never going to have all we want to do the work that we do. We're never going to have all the time, all the budget, all the personnel. The key is thinking about the resources that we do have creatively, leveraging them for maximum effect. Because when we do that, we find a lot of times we might not have what we want, but we do have what we need. And that's the mental shift we need to make. We need to get to a point where we are unstuck, in our focus. I had a moment years ago. I was traveling through Florida, and I was there for a conference, and I ran out of toothpaste. And I went down to the front desk and I asked the person there, I said, do you have a gift shop? Do you have someplace I can go and walk to get toothpaste? I ran out. And she said, no, we don't have anything like that. But I think I can help you out. And she started shuffling behind the front desk. And I thought she was going to grab, maybe a toiletry kit or something like that. And what she found, she was really excited that she found it. And she presented it to me and she goes, there it is. Here you go, Mr. Vanas. Now, when I do this live in person, if you're more than 10 feet away from me, you're going to have a hard time seeing. This is an actual tube of toothpaste built for a Barbie doll. And I got to admit, this is not what I expected. This isn't even really what I wanted, but it's exactly what I needed. And that's the mental shift that we have to make because, man, we can complain to the high heavens sometimes about the things that we don't have, and we miss out on the opportunities to use the things that we do have to create success. So this is a time now more than ever to be innovative, to be creative. And I know that speaking to all of you that are on this session, this is what you do daily for a living, but we all need a reminder because we sometimes get so busy being busy, we get entrenched and we don't pick our head up and realize all the wealth of information, resources, tools, and people that we have to work with on a daily basis. So think tribal centrically. One of the things that our warriors were that I want you to be aware of, and we mentioned it before, but I want to piggyback on this because in a team environment, it's critically important to understand our warriors never fought alone. They always fought with other warriors. Warriors beside them, behind them, in front of them. Why? Because when we are surrounded by bravery, we become brave. Just like I said earlier about what the elder shared with me, our spirits are like sponges. They soak up whatever they're around. And when we're in a good team environment, we're creating that, our good stuff is able to come out and emerge as well. So our warriors never fought alone. If you're doing this, if you're going through change and challenge alone, you are doing it wrong, okay? This is the time more than ever where we need to really connect with our people and stay connected to them. I also think it's critically important to build that right environment. I think everybody, you know, we get what we focus on. We all know that. I think we've all experienced that in life. And I think one of our greatest resources is not just our time, but also what we do with our time, what we put our attention towards and our intentions. And I think everybody could benefit from going on a diet. And I don't mean what we eat. I mean what we take in mentally. We always focus, when I say diet, usually the first thing that comes up is what we're putting in our mouth, because we're taught that from our youngest age, right? We learn about dinosaurs and carnivores and omnivores, herbivores, and then it goes into our adult life where we've got every kind of diet you could imagine. Keto and paleo and vegetarian, only eat vegetables, pescatarian, only fish and vegetables, humanitarians only, oh no, that's cannibalism. That's gross. You don't want to do that. But the point I'm trying to make is we are all, regardless of what your diet is, we are all informavores. We are constantly consuming information. And the question that we have to ask ourselves is what I'm consuming on a daily basis building me up, strengthening me, keeping me positive, or is it something else? You know, and only we can answer that question. But I do know when we feed ourselves good information, it comes out in our work and behavior. And when we are starting to inundate and marinate ourselves in negativity, that also too can come out. So it's up to us to be really aware of which is which. If we want to be a contributor, stay positive and hopeful, which is critically important in the environment we're in right now, with everything that we've been through. It's up to us to make sure we're feeding ourselves the right stuff on a daily basis. Surround yourself with strength. It's one of the quickest ways that we can see our own emerge. Be aware of who you hang out with, who you spend time with, who you seek advice from, what you read, what you listen to, what you watch, how you take care of your bodies. All these things go into the environment we create around us. And our warriors were very conscious about this, by the way. Our warriors did not leave this to chance. They took good care of their minds, their bodies, their spirits. They surrounded themselves and fought in the company of other warriors. It also, by the way, when we build that environment, it keeps us accountable, which is a great thing. And I mentioned this before, accountable for all the stuff that we do, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And when we have the right environment, we have people that help us stay on track. And they have high expectations for us. We have frequent check-ins where we're able to stay on the path that we've chosen for ourselves. And that's what accountability is all about, you know, because left to our own devices, sometimes we don't rise to the level that we're capable of. We just don't. But when we have other people in our environment that hold us accountable, that's where our good stuff comes out. So that's why I wanted to share that principle. Warriors never fought alone. Clan up, tribe up with the right people in your environment, handpick them. Zig Ziglar had a great quote years ago, the late great Zig Ziglar, who said, "It's hard to fly like an eagle if you're surrounded by turkeys." What a great quote. Easy to remember, hard to forget, and it works. So be aware of that. The point, you know, when we talk about accountability and why that pays off so much is we can get lost in our own lives. I think everybody has probably experienced that, especially over the course of the last year, where the stress and strain and, you know, our focus was pulled in all these different directions. We can get lost in our own lives. we don't work like other things found in nature, like say, for instance, pigeons. Pigeons were given a gift at birth, and the gift came in the form of a set of molecules that line up in their brain. So they always know where true north is. They don't get lost. They have an internal fail-safe GPS system that allows them to always know where true north is. We don't work like that as people. I think everybody would agree with that. We don't work like that. Anybody ever make a dumb decision? Just me? I can't see anybody, so I'm going to go on faith. I feel vulnerable right now raising my hand, but I'm going to assume other people are raising theirs too. Of course, we've all made bad calls. We've all made mistakes. We've all gotten to a point and place in our life and career sometimes where we're like, how did I get here? What happened? What was I thinking? And that's why accountability is so important. It keeps us on track. When we're surrounding ourselves with the right type of people, the right type of things, we start to create the right type of environment, and we start to get the right type of results. It's complete alignment. So we have to be aware of that. Be conscious about what you surround yourself with daily. Going back to the concept that warriors aren't bulletproof, I want to build off of that, because I think now more than ever, it's really important to be clear-eyed about that sustainability in our warrior path. We want to be contributors. We want to be strong. We all want to be brave, and we all want to deliver when it matters. And we can't do that if we're falling apart. Back to that martyr concept, right? And sometimes people will go until the wheels fall off. And I would teach that in my programs if it worked. It doesn't. All it does is lead us to a crisis. And I've heard people that have said the craziest things about taking care of ourselves over the years. Sometimes we'll do all-day sessions on self-care and making sure that we're managing our stress well and those types of things. And at the end of the day, people will come up and go, hey, DJ, these are great ideas. And you know what? I'm going to use them next year at the end of the fiscal quarter, when this project is done, when this event is over, when the kids are grown. Don't worry about me. I've got a vacation scheduled for the year 2029. I'm going to be good. And we wonder why we run into the problems that we run into. We can't fulfill the warrior role and be a strong, brave contributor who is resilient and able to sustain if we're falling apart. It's a total disconnect. It's like planting carrot seeds and hoping coconuts grow. It does not work. So the way that we do that is we strengthen ourselves on a daily basis. Like I said, our warriors were very conscientious about this. They took good care of their minds, their bodies, their spirits, because they knew their role and responsibility required it. They couldn't get to point A or go from A to Z without doing the steps in between. And we need to be aware of that. Managing our stress is critically important right now. I know we're all going through it. We've had a lot of moments where we have been, like I said at the beginning, tested, battered, bruised a little bit. But when we talk about stress, sometimes we talk about it in extremes. I hear people say things like, man, I wish I had no stress. This stress is driving me nuts. Well, that's not the goal. The goal is not to eliminate our stress. The goal is to manage it well and actively. Because what do we call people with zero stress? Dead. That's it. That's the only way we're getting out of it. And I mean that sincerely. If you are a living creature on this planet, if you are an oak tree, a salmon, an eagle, or a human being working at the Air Force Research Lab, you're going to have stress. A little bit is normal, a little bit is natural, a little bit is needed. It's what gets us up in the morning. It's what makes us seek food or socialization. Kept in the right balance, it actually serves us. It does. Stress in the right amounts makes us sharp. It makes us aware. It makes us productive. Anybody work good against the deadline? Probably most of you. Why? Because we have clarity when we have a deadline. This is why more work gets done 3 days before a vacation than the previous 3 weeks. Because we have clarity. We know what to say yes to, and we know what to say no to or not now to in that moment. And that's what makes us so productive. The problem is, and that's where we're at our peak. That's, if you look at stress as a bell curve, over here we have 0. We don't want to be there. That's dead. Up here is the peak. And then over here is 100%. We don't want to be there either. That's not dead, but it's on the way. That peak is where we want to be, at the top of the curve. Now, when we're at the top of the curve, we're productive, we're dialed in, we're in flow, we're in the zone, and it feels great. And the temptation is, man, this feels great. Let me put some more on my plate. And that's where the danger happens. That's where we stop taking care of ourselves. We just start putting more on our plate. And we go to the other side of the curve, which is called distress. This is where stress starts to have some wonky effects on us as human beings. It starts to affect our performance, our focus, our health, our relationships. Science is even showing now it affects our memory. Anybody have CRS? Can't remember stuff, right? And they're showing now it has as much to do with stress as it does to do with age. You know, people always write it off. Well, I'm getting older, I can't remember everything. No, a lot of times it's because we're running around with our hair on fire, trying to jam a whole lot of information in our brains. We don't get a good night of sleep or a full reboot and come back the next day and expect total recall. Doesn't work. So we want to manage our stress actively. And there's a lot of ways that we can do that. I'm sure you have your own strategies that are in play. And what I would ask you to do is incorporate them in your daily lives. A lot of times we don't do that because we go, oh, I'm too busy to do this. My philosophy on managing stress is I am too busy not to do this, because I want to operate every day in my work and my relationships at a high level. The only way that I do that is by design, by doing practical and intentional self-care, whether it's taking a walk, whether it's getting a good night of sleep, staying hydrated, pursuing a hobby, spending time reading, spending time in meditation, exercise, a spa day, you know, watching funny movies, whatever it may be that's in your self-care list, incorporate that in your daily existence. You know, when stress starts to build up, people ask me, what should I do? And the answer I give them is self-medicate. Now, let me explain that before you run away and say, did you hear what he said? Self-medicate. I mean medication from a traditional sense. Medicine, when I say medicine in general society, immediately what gets triggered as an image is a pill or a vaccine now, because we see that everywhere, right? That's what immediately gets triggered, a pill or a potion of some type. And it's no surprise that that comes into our minds first, because when we say medicine, we have every, third commercial anymore is hawking something. Every fifth page of a magazine is selling something. Lunesta, Allegra, Humira, Tylenol, Motrin. The other ones, that if you take it, it could cause a condition that if it lasts for more than 4 hours, you got to go to the ER. We see this on an endless loop on what medicine is. But in our traditional circles, in our tribal communities, medicine has a very different meaning. We call medicine mushkeke. Comes from two words. Mushke means strength that you gather. And the second word, ke, it means earth. Strength that you gather from the earth. And everything and anything can qualify. And by the way, medicine is also something we use not just when we're out of balance and sick. It's something we incorporate into our lives daily so that we prevent ourselves from getting out of balance and sick. And anything and everything can qualify as medicine as long as it keeps us strong, mind, body, and spirit. It could be spending time with our friends, like I said, getting a good night's sleep, the right diet, what you read, what you listen to, what you watch, taking a vacation, pursuing a hobby, doing yoga. I mean, the key is to know what your list looks like and use it. Because it's a two-step process, because a lot of times you'll ask people, how do you take care of yourself? And people are usually pretty quick to know. Well, I do this and this is good for me. But the second step doesn't get honored. We're not actually doing it. And in my in our tribe, we have two ways of learning. We have Kendaswin and we have Bokadwin. Kendaswin is head learning. It's logic. 1 + 1 = 2. And I know you use that every day in the work that you do. But we also have Bokadwin, which is heart learning. It's that learning, that intuition that comes to us in a quiet place. When we let the dirt settle in our mud puddle and we hear that little whisper that guides us along, that says things to us like, take it easy, take a break, get something to eat, go ask for help. You don't have to do it all today, whatever it may be, that little voice that comes to us. And sometimes we completely ignore it and we do it at our own peril. That little voice, I was taught, was given to us to guide us in the right direction. So the times where I ignored that, I suffered for it. I'll tell you that from personal experience. I had one of those moments when I was getting out of the Air Force. I was just starting my own business and we had just started a family. And if you asked me during that time if I was stressed, I would have told you the same thing I told everybody else. Oh yeah, I'm stressed, but I'm handling it. Now the first part of that statement was true. Second part, not so much. I knew what was good for me. I knew getting enough sleep, spending time with my family, reading, exercise, going to ceremony. I knew what was good for me. The only problem is I wasn't doing any of it because I said, I'm too busy to do it now. I'll get to it later. I'll do it later. And I had every classic sign of stress. I mean, I was getting headaches. I was drinking Maalox and Pepto-Bismol like it was part of my diet, popping Rolaids and Tums. I was agitated. I had all these different things that were all red flags that I completely ignored. Bolkadwin, that internal voice, was telling me, slow down, take a break. You don't have to do it all today. And I ignored all of it. And I woke up and later showed up one morning. And it showed up in the form of what I thought was a rash on the right side of my body, down to the top of my thigh. And each one of these spots started to burn like they had been touched with a match head, which is shingles. The resurgence of chickenpox later in life brought on by stress. That's what later looks like. And I would not wish that on my worst enemy. It was awful. And the reason why is because I went and I kept going until I fell apart and couldn't go anymore. Now, that's one way to learn. I don't recommend it. That's why I'm saying take care of yourself. I'm going to say something that's going to sound Dr. Seussian. And I know we've got some very smart people on this session, and I'm not trying to insult anybody, but I like Dr. Seuss, and this sounds like something he might have said. But here's what it is. I'm going to share it with you. You are the only you will ever have or be. I'll say that again. You are the only you will ever have or be. Act accordingly. No one can take care of us like we should take care of us. But if we want to fulfill that warrior role, if we want to be contributors, if we want to be a good teammate, if we want to do great work, we have got to take care of ourselves first. Once we do that and we're operating from solid ground, from a place of strength, then we can reach out and contribute and connect to people in the right way, coming from a whole place. We can't do that if we're falling apart. So take care of yourself. It's been rough this year. You might still be feeling the effects of it right now. But I do know when you invest in yourself and you take care of yourself, everything else we do in that warrior role is better. So honor that, honor yourself in that way. The other thing that we have dealt with a lot over this past year is going through unprecedented, high speed, and ongoing change. And I know it has rattled our cages, some more than others. You know, people have been through great disruption, job loss, lost relatives to COVID, had all kinds of different tests that we have all endured this past year. And going through change is hard. It's the one guarantee that we have from the moment we draw our first breath to the moment we draw our last. And we should be better at it because we know it's going to keep coming, but we struggle with it because we like things the way that they are. We like stability. We like safety. I mean, that's a human nature thing. And change messes with all of that. So I want to share some principles that you can use to manage change in your own life and career, hopefully in a more positive, more graceful way. It's never going to be perfect. We're always going to, but my philosophy is at least if we're stumbling in the right direction, that's success in my book. Our warriors always dealt with change, with disruption, with, if one thing didn't work, try a different approach, incorporating new tools, new technologies. Our tribal communities went through great sweeping changes in a very short amount of time, and we're still able to stay resilient and strong by following some principles that I think still are as applicable today as they always have been. And it creates what I call the Weeble Wobble effect. I don't know if anybody remembers those little toys back in the day, Weeble Wobbles, the little egg-shaped characters that had a tagline attached to them. You can knock them over, but they don't fall down. I love that. And I was a big Weeble Wobble fan back in the day. When I was a kid, I had all the Weeble Wobble swag. I had the treehouse, I had the airplane, and I love that concept of taking those shots, being knocked off center and quickly coming back to center. Mike Tyson had it's kind of a funny quote, it's in your face. He said, everybody's got a game plan until you get punched in the mouth. And how many times have we felt over the past year that we have gone through that same moment, right? Best laid plans and things change. We've got this figured out and then it's all different. This is gonna work and now we lost that resource. You know, when this pandemic first hit, I had a full speaking schedule, I traveled a lot, and I lost 16 jobs in 3 days. And I tell you, I wanted to drive to the airport, get on an airplane just to grab an air sickness bag and use it in that moment. It was so disruptive. It was such a, you know, not only blew my mind, but made me queasy at the same time. When those moments happen, we have to figure out a way to get back to center quickly and start moving forward again. And the way that we do that, the first step in doing that is to stay calm. Because my gosh, it is so tempting to want to have a freak out moment. Am I right? If you've ever been in that moment where you are facing your fear head on, the temptation is lose our minds because, you know, our emotions are up, our blood pressure is up, our heart rate is up, because all of a sudden everything starts to feel like it's kind of squeezing in. When we stay calm and just do a few deep breaths, something as simple as that, what we're doing in that moment is we're letting the dirt settle in our mud puddle so we can see clearly again. Just by taking a few deep breaths. It's medicine. We do not solve complex problems well when we are in freak out mode. And freak out mode is also that flight or fight response that we've had from evolutionary times way back in the day, where if you're picking berries with your family and a bear stands up on its hind legs and tries to attack you, it is great to have the flight or fight response because we take off and we can run and jump like a deer. And hopefully so can our family too, and they don't get eaten. That's a great response. The problem is in our evolution, that has not gone away. We still get that response, but in that moment, our brains don't work well in solving complex problems. We have to calm down to be able to do that well. So that's why that staying calm is so critically important. Everybody probably knows the story, or at least have heard of Apollo 13. It's a real life incident where we almost lost 3 astronauts halfway between the Earth and the Moon because they were having technical problems. Not a good place to have a breakdown, right? And astronauts are trained to operate under great stress and strain. They have to be self-sufficient and creative and innovative, especially when problems happen. That being said, they were still on the edge of, you know, fear, and that can affect performance and behavior. Now, the mission commander on the ground, Eugene Kranz, could sense that, you know, he knew that if the team on the ground and the team up there in the capsule, you know, if fear got the best of them, they weren't going to be able to fix the problem and people were going to die. That's how high the stakes were. And so he basically started having a conversation that had the spirit of, okay, we know what's wrong, but let's focus on what's right. What do we have to work with? How can we solve this problem? And if you know the story behind Apollo 13, you know they put something together with cardboard, rubber tubing, and duct tape that would have put MacGyver or James Bond to shame. And they got home safely. That is the power of a calm mind in action. So stay calm when navigating change. The second thing is to stay philosophical. Now, I know that might be a big ask, but the point I'm trying to make there is when we have a philosophy towards change, we have a mindset that can serve us well when we go through those moments of stress and strain. I love our philosophy in our tribal communities about change. Our elders always told us that change wasn't just a part of life, change was life. The change of the seasons, the circle of life, animal migration patterns, plants bloom, die, bloom again. All these things were interwoven into every aspect of our human journey. Change was not part of the deal. Change was life itself. I love that philosophy because when we make change a part of our life, the temptation is to cut it away. It's only a part. We'll just cut that piece out. We don't like that piece and we'll shove it in the corner. And how many times do you see people use a lot of time and energy upset about change instead of using that same time and energy to adapt to it and adopt to it? The choice is ours. You know, one works much better than the other. I'll let you figure out which is which. But stay philosophical. Sometimes, and one of the other philosophies I've carried with me for over 25 years, and I've used it going through loss, setback, heartbreak, failures, mistakes, is a philosophy I stole from Lenin. Not the one from Russia, the one from Liverpool, who's part of the Beatles, who had a line in one of his songs that I love, that there are no problems, only solutions. I love that. It's easy to remember, it's simple, straightforward, eloquent, and it works. So have a philosophy towards change. It will serve you now and in the future, because this is going to keep coming. I know we wish that it wouldn't. I know we try to, resist change. One of the changes we all go through is getting older. How many times do we resist that? We fight with every fiber of our being to stop the hands of time, which is impossible. We can waste a lot of time and energy doing that. I remember being a kid, we're all going through it, but I remember being a kid shopping for cereal with my mom and at the base commissary and looking at all the cereal. And, back in the day, they would always put a toy in the cereal. Remember that? And that's all I cared about. It could have been cat food in the box for all I cared. I wanted the toy. And they had good toys too, like tattoos that you could lick and stick on your sister's forehead, or little magnifying glasses that you could go in the backyard and start a fire. And now that I think about it, that's probably why they don't put those toys in the cereal anymore. But anyways, I digress. The point I'm trying to make is, when I was a little kid, that's all I cared about. Once you get 45 and beyond, what's the number one ingredient we're looking for in cereal? Fiber. What a sad turn of events we go through. But the point is, we can't stop change. It's going to keep happening. The only choice we get to make is how we adapt to it, how we adopt to it. Where do you want to put your time and energy? Stay grounded. That's the third strategy in handling change gracefully. Stay grounded. What is important to you? What are your values? What do you value? Our values, even despite turbulence and setbacks, usually remain the same. And our values are things like loyalty, integrity, love, respect. But it's also important to remember what we value. Things like our family, our career, our team, our own health. Both are important to know, especially during times of turbulence. And the reason why is because when we stay grounded in what's important to us, we have clarity. Everything in life becomes easier when we know what our values are and what we value. Because now we know what to say yes to, and now we also know what to say no to. And there's power in both. We have clarity in a world of chaos when we know what those things look like for us. Staying connected. I mentioned that before. Now, more than ever, it's important to stay connected with our people, with our tribe. The people who support us, who encourage us, who can give us great advice, who help hold us accountable. Going back to that word again, like I said, sometimes it's not always the nicest people we want in that group. We want people who hold us to a higher level. I think all of us can relate to having somebody in our lives at some point that held us to a higher standard, even if it was uncomfortable, even if it required a lot more work on our part. And sometimes, let's be honest, those people drove us nuts. Whether it was a parent, a teacher, a supervisor, a drill instructor, a coach, a boss, whatever it may be, a friend, that drove us nuts, but at the same time made us better. And that's the beauty of staying connected. They help us keep our path clear. They help us keep moving forward. And we all need that. Like I said, if you're doing this alone, you're doing it wrong. You're violating the laws of nature. We are social creatures by design. So honor that. Surround yourself with good people and good things. It pays off. And the last two, stay focused, stay flexible. Stay focused means, well, we live in a world of distraction. It's easy to get lost. It's easy to get distracted. It's easy to get overwhelmed. When we stay focused on the right things, we get the right results. If we try to focus on everything, we get no result. And it's one of the quickest ways I know to feel overwhelmed, to feel like too little peanut butter on too much toast, because in those moments we're doing the worst thing a warrior can do in battle. We are dividing and conquering ourselves. When we try to do a million things in a day and we are scattershot everywhere, we are ineffective in any one place. So stay focused, stay concentrated. That's where your power is really going to show up in fulfilling this warrior role. You can't do that if you're scattered to the wind. If you stand out on a sunny day for 5 minutes, nothing dramatic happens to us. Even though there's a star only 93 million miles away from us, the sun, pumping an insane amount of energy at this planet, it's spread out. But if you focus that energy that's falling gently on your face into, say, a magnifying glass, any 10-year-old kid will tell you what you can do with that. This ex-10-year-old kid used to do it all the time, and I got busted for it. You can light your backyard on fire. It's awesome. And it all comes down to the power of focus. Focus on the right things, get the right result. Focus on everything, you get none. And the last one is to stay flexible. Stay flexible when going through change. It's a critical asset to have. Innovation, creativity. If one thing doesn't work, it doesn't mean nothing will work. It means we have to find a new way. And how many things have changed for us over the course of the past year? Things we had to change, we had to flex, we had to do different things. And that's okay. The goals may remain the same, but the way that we get to the goal can change and sometimes must change. And that's okay. We have to stay flexible in our mind, because if we don't do that, we get entrenched. We get into a routine that quickly becomes a rut, and then we're unable or unwilling to do anything differently. And we miss out on a lot of opportunities when we do that. We've all heard the quote, there's more than one way to skin a cat, which is a terrible quote, I admit it. We should not ever be skinning a cat. But if you did skin a cat, there's more than one way to do it. And that's the takeaway here. Flexibility is important, especially during disruption and change. We need to be able to pivot. If one thing doesn't work, try something else. If that doesn't work, try something else. Get another answer, get an outside resource, consult with somebody else until you figure out what the new normal looks like. That's all goes back to flexibility. So the last thing I'll leave you with, this Calling All Warriors program, like I said, this is to promote this resilience, this internal strength, and exercising the courage that we're all capable of exercising. This has been a tough road, but you are on a path right now in the work that you do. You are on this traditional warrior path, a path of contribution, a path of fighting for something bigger than self, a path of leaving a legacy of service, and we get a chance to do that every day. But it's not easy, but it's the best path I know. And I think that I think everybody can kind of resonate with this, because like I said, you're walking it every day. But the last idea I'll leave you with is, we may not have chosen all the conditions that we're under right now, all the challenges and changes we've gone through. But we do always get to choose who we are and how we are as we step through change and turbulence. That's in our power. That's our choice. So if we keep practicing that, we find a way to make it through, we put one foot in front of the other, and we get to that place that we have set as our goal. And we do it together as a team, as a tribe. So with that, I know we're going to open it up for some questions. I know we covered a lot of ground, but I appreciate everybody being here. I appreciate what you do. I don't know you personally, but I applaud you and thank you for what you do for our nation. And it's been a joy being with you here today. So Marcus, you want to lead us into the Q&A portion?
Yes, thank you, DJ. That was truly amazing. Virtual clap. I know we can't see everybody else out in the audience, but that was truly amazing. We do have several minutes for questions, so if anyone in the audience, please chat in using the Q&A feature, and we will ask your questions live. There was a question that popped up regarding your documentary.
Yeah.
The date and time, it's in August. Has there been a specific date that has been put forward?
The way that this is coming out, great question. The way that this is coming out is it's being released nationwide on August 14th, but you have to check your local PBS listing to find out when they're actually going to air it, because that's how it was explained to me is they release it into the wild on August 14th, but there are 330 PBS stations across the United States, and all of them independently get to choose when they air it, how often they're going to air it, because this is, like I said, in conjunction with their fall pledge program. So you'll have to check your local listings. But after August 14th, any time or date, it could be aired.
All right, thank you. And just a couple comments coming in, just saying great talk. People really enjoyed it. The PBS does not have a streaming service, right? So you do have to tune in locally on your local cable channel, right?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe so. Yeah, I don't know if they have a streaming service, but I'd have to check into that. But
we have a question coming in. Any advice on working with other warriors when grudges or resentments arise?
Yeah, great question. And that's not a question of if that is going to happen. The question is when it happens, how do you handle it? Airing, I've found over the course of my career and in the work I do is a lot of times that headbutting, when that starts happening, it doesn't go away on its own without being directly addressed. When you sit down and you say, this is my, kind of air your grievances a little bit and focus on the issue and not cross the line on the personal attack part. Because that's where feathers get ruffled quickest, I think, is where we go beyond the problem. We're not arguing about the right solutions. We start, kind of getting into the edge of that personal attack part. And then people shut down and kind of bunker up. And so it takes a big person, it takes a leader, it takes a true warrior to sit down with somebody else and say, hey, look, this is how I see it. This is where I made my mistakes. This is important to be, again, we talked about accountability. We have to own our part of the disagreement. It's never one-sided, and there's always something that we can, improve on ourselves. And a lot of times these squabbles that start are just from miscommunications. And sometimes just airing it out. I'm a big believer in that, is sitting down, facing it, airing it out, talking it out before it starts to fester and becomes worse. Because we've all seen that in a team environment, is if those conflicts aren't addressed, and just simply something as simple as going up to somebody and go, hey, Marcus, I want to talk to you about what happened the other day. I kind of came at you, and, I was heated. I was more heated in that moment than I wanted to be. And just kind of start the conversation that way. Because if we don't do that, it can toxify our team environments, and then it starts to affect everybody's performance and everybody's feeling about being in the work environment. So it's on us to be, put on our adult cap and approach the problem head on and sit down and squash it. We're all professionals here. Come on. We know how to do this, even if it's uncomfortable. Great question, though.
Hey, DJ, this is Lieutenant Macias. We had a question that says, could you reiterate those main takeaways you just said? I didn't catch them all. This was from a couple minutes ago before the most recent question.
On navigating change?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah. The principles on navigating change, I think I froze up there. Number 1, stay calm. Number 2, stay philosophical. Number 3, stay grounded. Number 4, stay connected. Number 5, stay flexible, or no, stay focused. And then 6 is stay flexible. So those are those 6 principles that can guide us to navigate change a little bit more gracefully. And I've learned this through, falling down on my face over and over again the last 25 years on how to deal with stuff when it happens. And that's the model I'm sharing with you today. So.
Thank you, DJ.
Yeah,
we have a few more. Before I go to the next question, I just wanted to let everyone know I did drop the link for a survey in the chat. Please provide feedback to us. It is very welcome and much appreciated. And we will continue on with the next questions. The next one was, who was your greatest mentor and what did they do to stand above the rest?
Oh, wow. I've had a lot of great mentors. I've been blessed. All of them, I think one of the commonalities they had, whether it was my parents, my first boss in the Air Force, Major Donnell Smith, who was phenomenal, who got me to really rely on my own thought processes. Coming out of the Air Force Academy, we get told a lot what to do, how to do it, for 4 years. And then once you get out and you start kind of being more innovative on your own and start really being solution oriented based on your experience, sometimes we're looking for permission to kind of unleash, our own problem solving abilities. And one of the things I remember he asked me one day is I was struggling with an issue and he said something to me along the lines of, he sat back and he's smiling. He said, "I don't know, Lieutenant Vanas." He said, "What do you think you should do?" And it was one of those moments, I still remember it because it was almost like the doors opened up and he got me to start relying on my own, being confident in my own abilities. So that was one of the things is, those mentors that I've had were encouraging. They were the ones who worked hard when nobody else was around. They were not judgmental. They were humble. They were lifetime learners, all of them, from the eldest elder I've worked with to like I said, my first boss. All of them had that in common. They were also held me accountable, even in those moments I didn't want them to. That's a great mentor. They don't always make it easy on us, but they do make us better. And so those are the people I would not just wait for, I would go seek them out that have those kind of qualities. And I still do that today. I mentor a lot of people and I am mentored by a lot of people. So it's that circular mentorship that I think is so important in creating a good culture and a good team environment. Everybody is in that state. You're being mentored by somebody and you're mentoring somebody. That was the way our tribes always did it too, by the way. How do you handle competition? That is one source of arguing. How does the warrior handle internal competitiveness of the Air Force environment? Competition is a blessing and a curse. When we're competitive, it does springboard us forward to bring out our best ideas, passionately debate or defend them. But it also, we need to make sure that there's room at the table for everybody, in those conversations, and be humble enough to know that even if we have a great idea, we still need to be humble enough to be open to hear other people's ideas too. Because sometimes, when you're in a team environment, we all can have good ideas, but we need to stay focused on the fact that we're trying to come up with a solution, the best solution, and have the humility to understand that it might not be ours. But as long as the team is coming up with the right solution, that's what's really important. So that one, that takes some work. There's no magic bullets there. Like I said, I think it's a personality thing. But again, we can't change other people. We can only change ourselves, and approaching those issues with a little bit of humility, a little bit of, improving our listening skills, hearing what the other person has to say. Because how many times do arguments get started because we're not listening to each other and we start doing what I call combat communication? We just start trying to argue each other out of our position. I've never seen anybody win an argument, by the way, ever. I've never seen a baby pigeon either, but I've never seen anybody win an argument. I've seen a lot of them over the years, but that's when it becomes a conflict and we lose sight on the fact that we're trying to create a solution. We're not trying to win an argument. So I hope that makes sense. That's not an easy one. That's a tough question, but I'm glad you asked it. What do you think is the best way to change someone's perspective from glass half empty to glass half full? I think that leadership by example speaks to this one louder than anything else. Showing people what that looks like in a teamwork environment is critical. If you have somebody who's kind of more leans toward the negative side, trying to provide them some encouragement along the way, catch them doing the right thing, give them some positive feedback more often to get them to start seeing things in a more positive light. There's little things that we can do like that, but I think at the end of the day, setting a good example is one of the most powerful forms of change we can implement in a team environment. You know, Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. And I think what we do and what we show other people is a lot more important than what we say to them. And sometimes, you know, the people who are kind of lean towards more of the negative, they haven't seen a positive example in a long time or been around it. And when they're reminded of what that could look like, sometimes that can move the needle on the gauge as well. So that's why I think that's such an important thing to remember, is we lead by, you know, our leadership by example comes out in every sense of that word. People are paying attention to what we do, how we act, how we behave, our attitude. And it's one of the best ways that we can affect change in a team environment is start with us.
All right, thank you, DJ. We have a few more questions. What steps should we take to ensure we remain a help and not a hindrance when taking on being a warrior?
Oh man, that's another great question, because the temptation is we're so eager sometimes to help that I know that we can fall over the line and get into the micromanagement thing that we don't want to do. And we've all been I'm sure at one time or another in our career have been a victim of that, where we know how, you know, uncomfortable it is when somebody's micromanaging us. So we want to make sure that we're giving people what they need to do their jobs, giving them not just the tools and make sure that they know what they're doing, but also that they have our support as well. But what we don't want to do is cross the line and start sticking our fingers in the works for a couple reasons. Number one, we don't want to rob them of their initiative, rob them of their growth moments. But number two, as a leader, it's not our business to do that. We're trying to grow people strong from the inside out, not do everybody's job ourselves. So there's got to be a balancing act there. And I know what that feels like. I mean, you get over eager sometimes. When I had my teams in the Air Force, you know, I'd see somebody struggling. The temptation is to just reach in and do it. You know, let me do this for you, or get on my back, I'll carry you. But if we're trying to exercise good leadership, what we want to do is encourage them, coach them so they can solve their problem. And let them know you got their back if they need that. But you want to see them, you know, get that win, get that victory on their sheet, not on yours. So, but I definitely can relate to that one. I hope that answered your question.
All right, next question, DJ. These warrior concepts for confidence and clarity are really sound, and I look forward to using them at work and at home. Can you give us some strategies or ways of influencing our leaders who may have missed this webinar or are just naturally not, quote, in this mode?
Leadership from below is a real dynamic. We can influence our leaders, again, by our example. I've had this happen many times in my career where you're trying to influence your leaders in a certain way or trying to get them to be open to a certain direction, a new direction, especially when it comes to new stuff or innovative things. And being able to, how do I want to say this? Being able to have those open conversations and be able to share your perspective, your intention, but also explaining to them how it can benefit. That's one of the things too that I think can really have an influence with our leadership, is explain to them how the way that you're trying to do something is going to benefit them as well, or the organization. Because a lot of times, you know, it's easy to say no to things that are new because it's different, but it takes a little bit more convincing to be able to say yes to something new that can cause a positive change. There's some, you know, everybody kind of, I think, gets triggered a little bit. You know, fear and vulnerability comes in when it comes to doing something new. So, but we can influence our leaders. I've seen that happen, and I've done it myself at times in my career where you can have, you know, sit down with your boss and be able to have a candid conversation that can change the direction a little bit over time. So.
Thank you, DJ. Someone was asking about the name of the documentary. It's called Discovering Your Warrior Spirit, right?
Yes. Yeah, Discovering Your Warrior Spirit.
Yep.
And, the first one I was part of, the first PBS program was called The Warrior Tradition. And there's information about that on the PBS website.
Okay. Our next question, what recommendations do you have about dealing with warriors with huge egos and think that their way is the best?
Oh man, this is like a tractor pull of questions. They're just getting harder. That's a hard one. I mean, we've all dealt with that. You know, the biggest ego in the room, the one who doesn't have their ears open, likes to, you know, the ones who have all the answers and don't want to hear any feedback. Man, that's a tough one to deal with. What direction I would have you go in? I'm trying to think of, you know, the times that I've had to deal with that in my own career, or deal with clients that have that. You know, I kind of let them get all that energy out first, and then have you know, you usually have a better conversation when you allow them to kind of spout first, and then actually have a normal conversation. When somebody's got a big ego, if you stop them mid-flow, it just gets worse. That's one of the things I've found. I don't know that that's a great answer, but, you know, kind of let them get everything off of their chest first. Let them share their ideas, even if it's coming across as a, you know, kind of in an egotistical way. And then once that energy is out, I think you have a better chance of actually having real communication. But that's a tough one. That's a tough one. I mean, and it also depends on if this is your peer or if this is somebody who works for you in your team. That changes the way you handle it too. Because if it's somebody that works for you, you can sit them down, you know, and kind of have a coaching session, and, you know, kind of be able to do some gentle course correction. Say, you know, love the passion, love the ideas, but the way you're presenting it sometimes is turning people off in your team, and you know, try to get them to be a little bit more open to hearing other people's opinions or ideas. But if it's your peer or if it's a boss, that's going to take a different strategy. What have been some of your more rewarding or enjoyable experiences in life, other than the appendix experience, that have helped shape the warrior you are today? Oh my gosh, I think I have been blessed to do the work that I do and get to travel to the communities I've traveled to over the years. I have gotten so much information and so many great ideas from our elders across our Native communities on how life could work, maybe even on how life should work, that have kept me grounded, that have kept me balanced, that have kept me resilient, going through the things that I've gone through in my life. You know, the losses, the pain, the disruption, the setbacks, the stumbles, dealing with fear, that have helped me tremendously. And some of the more rewarding experiences, you know, being able to speak at the National Museum of the American Indian, the newest Smithsonian, speaking at the White House was an amazing experience. Being able to speak for different groups, whether youth. I mean, I have so many great memories and so many rewarding experiences that it's hard to, you know, single out a few. I'm trying to think of, you know, some of the best experiences I had that really shaped me to get to this point and start my own business came out of going through the Air Force Academy too. That was an incredible experience. I learned so much about myself, and, you know, got to do things like jump out of an airplane 5 times, and that was a huge confidence builder for me. I felt like I could do anything after that program. Going through survival school, you know, you learn a lot about yourself in those moments, and then I carried that philosophy forward into doing the work that I do, even through the setbacks, through the pain, or when things don't go right. We can still learn a lot and carry that to the next situation and make it better. So I don't know. I've had a lot of great experiences, a lot of wonderful people I've gotten to meet, a lot of great travel, but it's what makes the journey worth doing.
Thanks, DJ. Just a few more. Have you read the autobiography of Geronimo? If so, in Geronimo's autobiography, he talked about using the special names of everything when warriors were preparing for and on the warpath. Do you see parallels to today's warriors?
I didn't read his autobiography. I've read books on Geronimo, but there was always a preparation that warriors went through before battle. They would go through ceremony. They would get their special items out that would give them strength, encouragement, hope, to be able to face fear head on. They carried their own special things into battle, their medicine bags, their medicine bundles. And the reason why this is relevant today is because we have the opportunity to prepare for hard times as well. Even something as simple as a war cry. You know, our warriors would yell that out before they engaged in battle. And it was for two reasons. Number one, screaming at the top of your lungs not only intimidates the enemy, you know, you can win psychologically before the battle even starts. That was the first reason why we did it. But the second reason is it gave that warrior strength. It gave them a burst of courage in a moment where they were going to need it. And we can have a war cry, not that we do at full throat volume in a workplace. It's probably better if you don't. But there's other ways that we can do a war cry, whether it's having a quote, a saying, a placard in our office, a practice, or a behavior that is a go-to touchstone that gives us some encouragement and some hope when we're dealing with a situation that's scary or, you know, an unknown. It gives us what we need in that moment. So I'm a big believer of having a personal war cry, you know, having something that you go back to. You know, one of mine, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, is I would say every morning, literally, I would say, I will find a way forward. You know, and I would just say it to myself with commitment. Some mornings I would kind of growl it out because I was like, you know, like frustrated from the day before, but it's like, I will find a way forward. And the more I said it, the more it was working. So, and I've had different war cries at different moments in my life, but the point of preparation for battle is something that we all do individually, and we can either prepare well or we can just stumble into a situation and hope that it works out. I definitely prefer the latter or the former, the first one, to prepare, because we're all going to need it. It's not a question of if we get into those moments. The question is when we do, how are we going to respond? And a lot of times that answer comes back to the way that we prepared.
All right, we've got two more questions, DJ. First one, how would you recommend a warrior deal with passive-aggressive behavior? And then finally, what signs might be an indication that you are ready for a change?
Wow, both great questions. First of all, with passive-aggressive behavior, I would confront it. That's one of the things that can drag a team environment down as quick as anything, because it's a slow burning type of toxic dynamic. And sometimes that passive aggressive, you know, people might think they're getting away with it, but when you're starting to sense it and you're starting to see the impact, that's the time you need to be able to sit down and address it. Especially if you're in a supervisor role or a leader role, it's our obligation to address it. Because if somebody's being passive aggressive, they're not delivering their best on a daily basis. And sometimes it's either from a personal grievance, they're distracted, they're angry about something that happened 3 weeks ago. And sometimes just shedding light on it is enough, you know, calling it out is enough to remedy it. But it doesn't get resolved by just kind of like la, 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 and letting it go. Sometimes it just gets worse. The second thing, how do we know we're ready for a change? Again, I would listen to that internal voice. That internal voice that will tell us it's time to move on. This isn't working anymore. I need something else. I need something different. You know, sometimes we'll just keep working. You know, we stay busy being busy, and we're not conscious about the direction that we're going. I go back to that, you know, Kendaswin or Bolkadwin. Listen to that internal voice, that guide that will tell us that, because we kind of feel, and if we're staying aware, we can feel when we're starting to outgrow our space or our place. You know, it starts to feel a lot tighter. We feel like a pumpkin in a jar, you know, kind of thing. And that's when it's time to move on. And the changes, even when we're ready for them, will be scary. That's natural, that's normal. That's part of the deal, but it doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do.
Thank you, DJ. Very enjoyable talk. Appreciate your time. I would now like to hand it over to Dr. Walter Jones, the Director and Chancellor for Air Force Institute of Technology, to close us out.
Hey, thanks so much, Marcus. And it's really a pleasure for me to be a part of this team again after a few years of working for an unnamed sister service. It's good to be back, and I look forward to reacquainting myself with all of you. DJ in particular, thanks so much for sharing these great thoughts with us about how we can take care of ourselves and get along with each other and work together better as teams, and all the very, very important things that are just as important to accomplishing our mission as our technical skills are. So really, really good stuff. And I'll tell you, if all the seminar series are this great, I'm really glad to be back. So again, thanks so much to all of you for taking this time to take care of yourselves and look about yourselves. Please stay in touch with each other and with me. I look forward to reacquainting with many of you, and DJ in particular, thanks again. And I am, for one, I'm looking forward to your PBS special coming to a PBS station near you. Thanks again, Marcus, and out here from AFIT. Thanks.
Thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. That concludes our session.